when you've been a family financial advisor for as long as I have, 20 plus years now, you end up talking to your clients about a lot of different important financial questions and concepts. And one of the ones that I think really adds value for a lot of folks is sometimes there's one spouse that's on board with saving and planning for the future, and the other spouse, frankly, really enjoys spending money. I try to connect with that spouse, the resistant one. And eventually the subject comes up and I let them drive this, which is, hey, Azul, it doesn't feel that fun for me to save money. I'd rather go out and spend it. I want to live for today and tomorrow will take care of itself. Well, maybe. You know what's less fun than saving money? What's less fun is losing control of your life. And one of the nice things about, if at least you have an emergency fund, is it gives you flexibility, it gives you options. If you feel like you need to make a change professionally, you can take 3 months, you can take 6 months to look for a job. Now, I always suggest to people that they look for a job while they have a job. I think it's a lot easier to find a job when you have a job. But let's say that's just not possible, right? You're in a difficult situation at work. You just can't face going into work anymore. You know what? It's nice to have that flexibility. The other thing is, think about how much control of your life that you're handing over to the company that you work for. You're handing over to your boss if you don't have savings. At least in my state, everybody is an at-will employee. I've been at my firm for over 20 years. Hopefully I never have to worry about this, but the reality is I could go in tomorrow morning and the company could say, hey, Azul, thanks for your services. We've really enjoyed having you here, but we've decided we don't need your services anymore. So an emergency fund helps with that, but let's go past an emergency fund. When you start saving money, then your money can start working harder for you than you're working for your money. And that gives you financial freedom. The reality is many of us are working because we need to work. We need the money. We need to be able to pay our mortgage and to pay our expenses and to save for college. And I was there for many years. Fortunately, now I'm not. And the sooner you can get there, I think the more freedom and the more joy you're going to have in your life, because then you're working because this is really your life's work. This is giving you joy, this is giving you purpose, and this is giving you meaning. And I think those are all really powerful things. So Reid Hoffman, who's the founder of a company called LinkedIn, I'm paraphrasing Reid here, but essentially Reid says, money is a terrible motivator for work. You don't want your wallet to drive you working, you want your heart to drive you working. And the nice thing about if you can save up money, if you can put yourself on the path to financial independence, even if you're not there, if you can get to the point where, okay, even if I never save another dime, I've already saved enough that if I just let these accounts grow and do what they're designed to do, I'm going to have a comfortable retirement. Well, you've just put yourself in a situation where all your work, all your salary has to cover is your living expenses. And there's a lot of freedom in that at a minimum. So is saving fun? Probably not, but it's a heck of a lot better than the alternative. Okay, let's keep going. Oftentimes through these conversations, sometimes as I get to know people, somebody will say, I'm kind of in a slump. We're not saving because, I'm just not in the right mental space right now. I'm in a challenging time in my life. And, one of the stories I like to share with them is I was fortunate enough when I was in business school, one of my friends used to work directly for Steve Jobs. And I was fortunate enough that Michelle, my friend, was able to line up a dinner with Steve Jobs at another one of my classmates' homes. And there were 4 or 5 of us in this meeting where we had dinner and then we just talked about life. And it was really powerful for me, not because I saw this charismatic, bend reality world that could be Steve Jobs. Instead, and this was in 1994, so it's exactly 30 years as I record this. Instead, the Steve Jobs that showed up was kind of depressed. He was between successes. He had started Apple, had taken Apple public, was very famous and was one of the original tech superstars, and and tech moguls. But then, he very publicly got fired from the company that he and Wozniak started. It was very public, and people were saying, oh, what a jerk he was to work for. And he had gone on since then, and he had started a company, his next company. I was going to say, I forgot the name of it, but as soon as I thought the name of his next company was Next. So I remembered it. He had started Next, which was kind of the next iteration where he thought computers were evolving to. And it was not clear that that was going to be successful, and he'd raised a lot of money. And in addition, a couple weeks before I met with him, he had previously, a couple years earlier, had bought in Pixar, I believe from George Lucas. And a couple weeks before our dinner, a bunch of the engineers at Pixar quit. They said, we won't work for Steve Jobs. He's too demanding and he doesn't understand people. And that was very public. So the Steve Jobs that showed up at that dinner was down and out. He was not down and out financially, but he was down and out emotionally. He was beating up on himself. I've always been a fan of Steve Jobs, but ever since then, I've really cheered for Steve. Obviously now he's passed, but for many years I cheered for Steve when he went back to Apple. I cheered for Steve when he announced the new color computers. A lot of people don't remember that. And then the iPod. And then, really his new pinnacle was when he launched the iPhone and then the iPad. And just to watch his path. And so I say all this just to say, you know what? None of us get through life unscathed. We all spend time in the crucible. So if you're in the crucible now and you're thinking, Azul, this is all great. I like what you're saying about retiring early, but right now I'm just in a slump. I really don't want to hear a lot about this saving for retirement. Well, I'd push back because you're 7 minutes into my video here. So hopefully you do want to hear something about being able to have the alternative where it's your choice on whether you retire early or not. So, all I would say is we've all been there. We're there with you, and keep at it, because turning around that mental attitude is really important. And one of the things that's worked for me, and I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, but it's just surrounding myself with mentors. And whether that's mentors in person, or those are mentors because I'm listening to podcasts, I'm watching YouTube videos like this, or reading or listening to Audible books, I should say. But surround yourself with strong people, surround yourself with mentors, and keep working at it. I've been there, I've been in slumps. Everybody watching this video at some point's been in a slump. It's not gonna last forever, so I encourage you to just keep going. I also encourage you to watch this video here, where I talk about 7 things that I want you to think about stop doing in your 50s and 60s in order to enjoy your journey more.